All right, so we're all good to go there. We're all live. So just really quick as we get people in here and stuff, James, I just want to answer your question. First and foremost, I would probably prioritize certain factors. Um, I would prioritize certainly more lap leaders, and we'll go over through that. And certainly in the first, because always in the first part of the live streams, I typically just give my takes and stuff, and all that should answer the question, James. But personally, for me, I would not play that line in single entry, and I have several reasons for that, which we'll kind of just talk about here. So yet again, this is where we're at in terms of practice stuff. Yet again, because I just like looking at recent form more in comparison to where people are at and what they're qualifying. And so, like when you divide the two groups into different, or when you divide the field into two different qualifying or two different practice groups, you see that different groups are faster or slower, but then you can just reference where these guys are in terms of their race speed at these races and stuff, and it's not as big of a thing as other people make it out to be. At least for me, in my opinion, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Um, but this is where everybody was at for practice. Now it is noteworthy that Grayson ran so long. I mean, typically at a racetrack like this, like I would want to see people run long because Nashville is very, very difficult to pass at. The two major contributing factors to being able to win and perform well at Nashville is starting position and how good your pit crew is and your pit road selection, because it's so difficult to pass at this track. Because people will get spread out. We're not racing side by side. We're not doing any of that. We are very much just racing on like pure speed once we get out of these restarts. Like I don't envision a lot of yellows today. I don't envision a lot of wrecks and stuff. I see a pretty boring race that should spread out, and passing should be few and far between outside of the initial um, restarts, which you could argue could make people who can gain positions on restarts more important here. Um, but for me, I think that limits the amount of place differential plays that you necessarily want to chase. Now, we have seen place differential plays pretty much fail, pretty much be dead on arrival. Now, we have been at different tracks, but still, when we're looking at the guys in the back of the field that are primed to offer a lot of place differential, and you combine that with their pricing. For me personally, I'm not playing Kyle Busch. I'm not playing Daniel Suarez. I'm not playing Joey Logano because I think that all these individuals run into issues that limit their true upside with what they can score. Like when we look at Logano here, and I know my little face is like right at AJ, but we can see everything else. Like this is where Logano has been at. And when we look at where he's starting and the potential upside of him, getting laps led and leading, like that makes it to where I don't want to play Logano. I don't want to play Kyle Busch, despite the fact that um, he started off with some races that he ran very well at. Now at Las Vegas, he got a speeding issue, or he sped on pit lane and finished well down in the race, which if I can bring it up here. Yeah, he ends up finishing 26th. I mean, Kyle Busch technically had the seventh best car at Las Vegas in terms of green flag speed, but he sped on pit lane and finished poorly. We look at Dover and Kansas, two good races, and then situations that we've clearly seen either a huge decline in just what RCR is doing. The fact, just side note, is going to be pretty cool to see Noah Gragson in the 3 car. Dale Earnhardt Jr. fans or Dale Earnhardt fans, eat your heart out. Since Dylan's going to go to a competitive role, we have Petrie leaving, and situations like that. So like we've seen like a significant decrease in performance from RCR in general. Personally, I'm just not going to be playing Kyle Busch at 8200. Very similar reasoning behind Logano. Like I'm not playing these individual drivers. When we look at Suarez, same situation. I just think you should pass on the place differential that Suarez offers here, or the potential place differential that he offers here. I just don't see a reason why you would want to sacrifice a build to focus on a situation like this. Same thing with when we talk about Blaney and Chastain. Now, we look at the 5 lap averages and you see that Blaney, was screaming fast here. But you look at where he's at, and we haven't really touched on the pit selections yet, which we will touch on. But Blaney at 93, I mean, I have him, very much in the range of like, you know, 45 to probably 52 points at 86. Yeah, sure, that's point for dollar wise, that's not bad. But in terms of what we're competing against, the race that has 300 laps, in a race to where your lap leaders will most likely only come from Hamlin, Bell, and Larson. Realistically, it's these three guys who have the best chances of leading laps. And I think between Bell and Larson, there is no distinguishable attribute towards either driver to push one above the other. I think they are an identical play, and I cannot find a data point to truly separate Bell and Larson. Um, but I believe that your lap leaders are coming from these three. And so, like, when I look at Bell or when I look at Blaney here, you know, the two avenues of like lineup construction that like would make sense to me would be to try and grab two of Bell, Larson, and Hamlin, or build a one lap leader lineup, and then you're forced to go with like Blaney and Chastain, um, to the contrary of spinning up for two 10K guys. Like those are the only two avenues that I see working today. And so it's like Hamlin dominates, Larson dominates, or Bell dominates. Like if you're just focused on one of those, and then you're forced to go to a Blaney, a Chastain, a Truex, which if I was doing single entry, like that might be the avenue I would prefer to chase versus the lineup that you brought up um in the chat before the stream, or absolutely nailing two lap leaders of guys starting in the top four positions. This is not a race that I want to really focus on place differential. Like even to this extent, like Truex is, at 95. I don't know how he works if he doesn't win the race or if he doesn't lead a significant amount of laps. Like Truex getting to like fourth at the end of the day, and he's not like leading laps or anything. Like I just don't see how him scoring like, mid 50s, maybe even like, high 50s is pushing out lap leaders who have been up there all day. And so at least for me, if I'm chasing place differential, I think in terms of categorizing, if you're focusing on place differential, it's not Kyle Busch, it's not Logano, it's not Suarez. It would be people like Chastain, Blaney, and Truex. But then you have, you're deciding: are you chasing that place differential? Are you paying up for that with a one lap leader, or are you chasing two lap leaders? Like those are the only two avenues today that I think are viable. The only driver, like when we start looking through and you put in the combination of where they've been in practice, what their pit selection is, and what they've performed recently. Let's go through and look at all these place differential plays. And so you have Truex here, you have Blaney here, you have Chastain, which we're seeing that these guys are like, a lot of these ceilings are pretty much like right at like 9th, 10th in terms of where they should be in terms of speed. That's where, the variance or luck or whatever comes into play. Like strategy could very easily, promote any of these guys to leading if the leaders get caught at a bad yellow or whatever the case may be. But that's where, the true, not upside, but I think that's where we're capping a lot of these guys. And that's why I'm very hesitant on paying up for people like this. Make sure I'm streaming this screen. Okay. Yeah, I am. This is where Bush is. This is where Suarez is. And so when I start looking at guys in the back of the field, the only one that I think could realistically start getting through the field, and even then it's going to be a slow, process throughout the whole day, but that's Bubba Wallace. Like Bubba Wallace would be the guy that I would want to go to due to his pricing for the most part. But when you're putting him head to head between like someone like Suarez, I think he's a better play than Suarez. I think he's a better point per dollar play than the other place differential plays that I've mentioned here. And so like the only place differential play that I could like truly give like a thumbs up to or a check mark would be Bubba Wallace at $7,800, because he is not messing up or dictating what type of lineup construction build you're working with. He fits in either or, where it's the two lap leaders or one guy, and then you're paying up for place differential, whatever the case may be. Like I think Bubba Wallace would probably be the best place differential play that you're looking for. And I think he works in any build at all. And so, like, for that, for all those reasonings, like, I think Bubba Wallace is probably the best play in the slate. And that's not even because he is expected to do anything. It's just that he's able to pay off his price tag at just doing what he can normally do. And he's pretty much beating the other place differential guys or people who are going to be scoring the same as him. He's just beating them in terms of pricing. So, like, that's my avenue, or that's kind of like my take there. My other take would be, I think there's only 3 value guys you can play today. I think it's very much Daniel Hemrick at 5,100, starting dead last, basically last, because Finchip is not. I mean, I even removed. It's bad when I'm like, I just flat out removed Chad's laps. That was just a waste of time being here. But when you look at Hemrick and you look at what colleague understands where they're at. Like, at least they're self-aware. AJ might like throw fits and like, get upset and stuff. Hemrick knows where he's at. Okay. They know, guys, we don't have speed. Our only saving grace is strategy. And so in every race, they are part of the group that is running long to try and get a yellow, to try and get off strategy. And that has happened with Hemrick. That's both of these situations between Dover and Charlotte. These have been situations where they have tried to play different and taken a car that has ran pretty poorly and put in a position to either trap people a lap down or run ahead of people. Like, when you look at Hemrick's finishes versus where he's at in these races, like, this is just out loud. I mean, this is all the races in general, but 31st, 29th, 28th, 18th, 18th, 33rd, 30th, 9th, 9th. Well, that's Talladega, but 20th, 28th, 30th, 38th, 28th, 28th. Like, when you're getting to that situation of starting 37th, this is a guy that I would assume like, if everybody goes green and there's no carnage, nothing, we don't have any stupid stuff in the stages, it goes green. Daniel Hemrick finishes like 32nd today. Little bit of strategy moves him up into like the mid 20s. Like, that is what you're aiming for with Hemrick. The other guy would be Todd Gillen at 6,700. Maybe not a value in your eyes, but that's the other guy who would be able to get through the field. I know we already have people, I know in the chat, but we had people, bringing up Nemechek, Jones. I mean, Legacy Motorsport is pretty bad. Like, they are probably the worst team in the Cup Series right now in terms of like raw speed. When you look at what Jones is like slowly getting through these cars, like head to head between Gillen and Jones, I would take Gillen any day of the week. And even with that, I haven't mentioned Michael McDowell, but I think McDowell can maintain a running position inside the top 12 today, realistically. But like, Gillen starting 22nd is a much better play than Jones, in my opinion. I think he's much better than Nemechek. And I would just prefer Gillen. The other one would be Justin Haley. Okay, yeah, sure, pass through, whatever. I don't care. If the race goes green, I mean, he's not recovering that anyway. So like, why? Like, it's so big of a deal, it's not even an issue. When we look at, I will admit, I have not been playing Haley this year, and that has absolutely been, like, hindsight looking back, an absolute massive mistake. An absolute massive mistake. I have several friends who have been like, I have played 35% of Haley every week, and it has not like backfired at all. Like, Justin Haley has legit been a cheat code in DFS. He may have not have been optimal in all these races, but at no point has he truly sunk in your lineups. The amount of times this man has scored over 30 points at relatively like unowned ownership, like, at least for me, speaking out, that's been a mistake. I have not been playing Haley enough. Regardless of the track type, we know where the Rickware Empire is in other series. I mean, if you look in terms of like racing teams across, they are probably the biggest race team ever, man. Bigger than Penske, bigger than Porsche, bigger than Ferrari. They race in everything. Okay. NASCAR is very much their worst performing metric before this year. And we're seeing that the Rickware Empire is moving up. It's a shame that Bubba Wallace has cheated his way to victory, because my thought process of still Rick Ware Racing getting a win before Bubba Wallace, I think that's very much in the cards here. So in terms of legit wins, Justin Haley might get a win before Bubba Wallace. But we're seeing that Rick Ware is absolutely moving up. And in terms of the value range, like your 3 guys today, I think you're using Hemrick. I think you use Justin Haley. Who cares if he's a lap down? Who cares that he has a drive through? If he gets a yellow, it's going to be completely fine. When you look at where he's at in terms of here, and certainly in terms of recency at Kansas, Darlington, and Coca-Cola, I mean, this is where I think Haley would very much be primed if they get a restart. If he gets his lap back, he can very easily compete for mid-20s. Finish day at $5,600. I think that's pretty huge, especially if you're paying up for 2 lap leaders, which I think ideally that's what you want to do today. Just where I'm at. Like I'm not paying for Kyle Busch, not doing this crap back here, not paying up for these place differential guys who are like rocky at best. Let me try and nail the lap leaders up front. Let me pay down to get to these guys, and the 2 pay down guys that I would be using would be Haley and Hemrick. Whether it's them together, whether it's just one of those guys, which I think you just need one of them. But though that's where the builds, that's where I would assume that I would want to be landing on. And I think the likelihood of either Haley or Hemrick being optimal in a race that gets maybe 2 or 3 yellows within, either stage 1 or stage 2, or even if it just gets crazy, like they don't need to be wild. They don't need to fight for the lead late at the race on a late race restart. These are guys who can very easily survive if they could just, if Haley recovers from potentially being a lap down, which I don't think he will be. I think he'll come out and probably be like maybe 8 seconds ahead of Larson. Maybe not. He might be like, I mean, he'll be 1 down. Like, I mean, we're arguing semantics at this point. Like, Haley will need help, but in terms of value, those are the 2 guys I'd be looking at. The real saving grace would be that if Haley's lapped, he most likely falls leaving pit lane. He most likely falls to, like if Larson's first, he most likely merges probably around anywhere from 8th to 18th. So he won't be lapped again. We get a yellow for a crash either stage. Like Haley's most likely staying 1 lap down all day, and he will pass. He will be faster than other people who are a lap down. And so this might be a long grog for him. But at the end of the day, I would not be shocked to see Haley finish 28th, 1 lap down with everybody else who's 1 lap down. And that's where I'm at. Those are my main takes. If I didn't mention somebody, like I'm not really, leaning towards other things. My main constructions or my main opinions would be leaning towards that direction. I like Ty Gibbs, but that's probably more of a pricing range. Yet again, very similar to Bubba Wallace. Like Ty Gibbs pretty much fits in any type of build you're doing. I think Gibbs and Wallace are pretty solid plays with any construction you're doing. But that's mainly it. Let's see what you guys are saying. But those are my takes. That's where I'm at. Let's see. Alexander, Gibbs, Mayer, William Weatherman is going for 1 dominator. Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is like yesterday, Ty Gibbs got wrecked, and more than likely, a lot of the Ty Gibbs lineups outside of, I mean, even if, because Nemechek was so low owned, or whoever won, I just went blank on who won yesterday, but they were owned at 12%. There's a real chance that clearly a lot of the Gibbs lineups would have cashed because he was 50% owned. But realistically, with Quaffle and who's the other place differential guy that went through? Realistically, if you missed on the lap leader, the Gibbs, Quaffle, and Williams builds most likely would have probably finished in the cash zone in GPPs until Gibbs gets spun and stuff. But in terms of like, would you do right or wrong, Alexander? I mean, that's just the variance of NASCAR. It's like today in F1. Like, I both feel very sorry for people who had Max Verstappen today and Lando Norris, like absolute nuts, kill themselves with like 4 to go. But also at the same time, like, look, okay, we're getting ridiculous here. If you guys are going to be running, I can't compete with this, man. If you guys are going to be running like 4 to 5 to 6 lineup trains in your portfolio, like, I can't really feel sorry for you. Like, dude, look through the CSV of this F1 race, and it's disgusting. The amount of self-imposed trains that these guys are running. I cannot, that's insane. Absolutely crazy stuff when these guys are running, easily, 75, 100 lineups, and they're just running like 50 lines. Like they're just training their own stuff. Like that's insane. That's crazy. Um, that's nuts. But like they were right. They had literally whatever optimal would end up being. Each of those lineups would have been $1,000 or something. So it just how variance goes and stuff, or how variance is, and everything. Uh, Thank you for the 91 of you guys here joining me on a Sunday. Let me see what else. Gillen over Jones. Yeah, I prefer Gillen over Jones. Six and hell yeah, Jason. Good to hear that. And you get to play 7 lineups today, Alexander. So you get to so what I would do, like if I was you, Alex, I would probably do 5 lineups with 2 of these 3 guys. And then your final 2, whatever 2 you feel the most confident in, do solo lineups with those. Like that's how I would truly build the 7 from there. Yeah. I mean, dude, but like dude, it's so funny. Everything Bubba does, like I love Bubba Wallace because I can just go into the comment section of anything, whether it be on Twitter, Facebook, and you just see why would people be actively racist on their on their like on their accounts that have like their full legal name? Like I can't imagine doing that. That is insane. It's crazy. Um let's see. So I haven't even really considered what the ownership is going to be today. I'm not really, that is an aspect when we get back to Nashville and stuff like this. Like I'm just leaning more towards where we're at. I'm not concerned about ownership at all. I just speaking out loud, like I mean, I think Bell and Larson are very much identical plays. Now, yet again, Bell ran into a lot of issues earlier in the year. But when you look at where, like Bell, if I'm not mistaken, has the best pit crew as of late. Could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's like Bell, Byron, Barry, Hamlin, or something along those lines. Or at least Bell is like a top 4 at the moment, whereas Larson goes up and down because he does his own thing. But I mean, I think Bell has a better chance of getting the lead off a pit lane than Larson does today. And then I went crazy. I legit spent like 10 minutes the other day. Like, what data am I pulling from? Where is Larson at? I was like, what is messed up in my stuff? I completely forgot he didn't even run Charlotte. But I think these 2 ownerships should end up being way closer than they probably will end up being. Bell and Larson. I think we're going to have a majority of the field probably use Larson here. I don't know. For me personally, I probably want equal exposure to both of them. I think they're very much in line to do very, very similar stuff. What else? What else are we doing? Oh yeah, I mean, if we get yellow, look, if you're in the grandstands in Nashville today and you're over the age of 58, if you don't get any sun or rain or clouds today, you have a good chance of dying in the stands. It absolutely, like if you're like those guys are doing nothing but praying for any type of precipitation at Nashville today. So for me, like I play on FanDuel here and there. Don't do it every time. I don't even waste my time building projections. I just use my stuff and play the same guys over FanDuel. Like I haven't even bothered looking at the projections and stuff. But great thing about being here is that Sheets plays a lot on FanDuel. He makes his projections for FanDuel. You can access those as well if you have our subscription. So like even if it's not just me, or if like I don't play FanDuel and stuff, but you can very easily use his stuff. But I would very much envision, just because place differential is less important on FanDuel, you nearly always want to play. FanDuel is very much more just trying to play all the guys who are going to finish up front, regardless if they pass a lot of people, regardless if they lead a lot of laps, because it's such a small addition to getting laps. Like there's no fast lap points there, and so like you mainly I would primarily focus on like Hamlin and Larson and Bell. I try and get 2, if not 3 of those guys, and then just play like kind of whatever you can do after that. on FanDuel. But yet again, I haven't even bothered looking at the salaries. So like Corey Heim, $7,200. I don't think any opinion really matters on if he does good or bad. Like I gave, where we at with Corey Heim? I gave Corey Heim a solid 20th today. And at that point, he's not in the conversation. So that was pretty much where my opinion of that ended. Being in the 7K range is, like I said, I would prefer Bubba Wallace. Now Corey Heim did, perform adequately. I mean, like this is where he's at in the 2 races and stuff, and this is at in terms of how fast his car was, not where he finished. But I mean, I think you would expect the same thing here, and I think realistically, like today, he finished in the mid-20s. But for DFS, I just don't think you even need to truly waste a lot of time looking at where he's at. This is where Bowman is. So this is what is also interesting. So if we're building lineups, at least for me, where I'm at, if I'm not focusing on getting a lot of place differential from like Kyle Busch, Logano, Suarez, right? And you're, a bit rocky with what Truex, Blaney, Chastain can do, right? Then yet again, so now we've we mentioned like the 2 major ways that I probably build. Going farther along the lines of getting away from playing place differential stuff, I think builds that work with Bowman are builds that would probably also work with Chris Buescher, either together. I mean, clearly they can 1v1 and stuff, but probably playing people like, probably say Hamlin, Bell, Ty Gibbs, Bowman, and then whatever values or something. Like the Bowman plays work, or he's more viable if raw points are more important at the end of the day. And what that means is if we don't have chaos, we don't have a lot of place differential coming through, getting a 5x, even like a 4, which I mean, you probably need a 5x from Bowman, but like getting the straight 40 from Bowman might be enough to let him be in there. If people legit can't pass, if you can't make moves through the field, if things are getting crazy and Bowman just does his normal Bowman thing of like coming in like 8th or whatever, not even sure what that projection ended up looking like. I mean, it probably ended up looking at him like scoring like 39, like right at 40 points. Like Bowman works in situations to where like raw points are more important than anything else. And so you can envision that looking a lot of like, right when the contest starts. I would encourage everybody to almost addictively look at live scoring throughout a race. You got to remove whatever money you're winning, losing, however that's performing away from it. But pay attention to how things are actually scoring during these races, and it'll help you understand construction a lot more. But you'll notice, like clearly the lineups that are winning right when the race start, can usually stay up there and perform pretty decently until like the end of stage 1 or the end of stage 2, or when we start having wrecks and stuff. But like Bowman's viability is if raw points are needed over, and that means like a lot of people are either like right at value or hitting under value, and him at like 40 points is enough to make him optimal today. So like the initial gut answer for me would be like, no, I don't like Bowman, but like if you're playing him, you need to understand what type of line of construction you need to make him work and stuff. So long answer is everything I just said. Quick answer is no, I don't like Bowman today. Will be and see like why would Hamlin not be owned today? That's like crazy. Like why would Hamlin not be the highest owned driver today? Like what? That makes like no sense. This man has been like, when you start looking at, so this is, going back to Nashville last year, worst car was 9th at Homestead. You look at anybody else who's up there, they faulted it. Well, I mean, Larson wasn't here. It's been Larson and Hamlin who's been most consistent. You look at Byron, it's fallen out here and there. You look at Bell, falls out here and there. You look at Reddick, falls out. You look at Truex, You look at Truex falls out. Like Hamlin and Larson have been the two most consistent guys at 1.5. So why would Hamlin not be the highest owned driver today? Not saying he shouldn't be. Like I think he should be the highest owned driver. Starting first, number one pit stall is huge here. Great queue time, decent time in practice. Happy to see everything we're seeing here. Like Hamlin should be the highest owned and the favorite to win this race today. That's where I'm at, or that's what my thoughts would be, Jason. So if that's not the case, that's pretty wild. But I believe even SaberSim is projecting him as the highest owned. What does Sheets have him at? See very quickly here. Which I mean, even at that point, like that's kind of a weird argument or a weird thing to be wasting time on. Like we know by default Hamlin's going to be a top 3 in ownership. So I think in a situation like this, that's not a major thing. Yeah, he has him as the highest owned driver. Yeah, so like why would Hamlin like not be the highest owned driver? That I don't think that makes a lot of sense. But that's I mean it's kind of all my points, kind of where I'm at. And like I said, like probably my favorite approach would be getting Hamlin, Bell, or Larson. Today, when we look at pit selection here, which all this is baked into my stuff anyway, but for the sake of discussing pit road, here we are. Like number one pit stall is huge thing to have. We have, Barry, who's most likely, like, I don't understand this. I don't know if he lost pit selection. Not entirely sure. Really didn't even bother. Like, I don't need to understand the reasoning behind why it is such a disaster. That's Kyle Busch, actually. I don't know why I was looking at the 8 car. But like Barry, good pit stall. I just think he gets beat by Bell, by possibly Larson. I just don't see Barry getting the lead on pit lane. Fourth favorite to do it out of the top 4 guys, but Hamlin, Bell, Larson, pretty much in the best pit stops or in the best pit stalls on the track in terms of ease of getting in terms of ease of getting out and stuff. But then like there's no real favorites past that. Like we saw in the Xfinity race yesterday that it was pretty much the same guys getting off a pit lane the fastest, not because of it's those teams and stuff, but like you clearly saw advantages out of those pit stalls. And I would probably argue this seems like a trend. Now, yet again, we've only had 3 cup races here. And I haven't gone through and looked through it fully, but I think this is probably a race track that it seems like number one pit stall probably has more consistency in getting the leader off a pit lane fastest or faster. Because we really didn't really see that falter a ton in these races this weekend. But like I said, all this is factored in. And I think this is the most important place of where we're going to be making positions. And so, like, maybe you do. I mean, I'm not going to be getting to Barry at 7,700. But like I just don't see how anybody else leads outside of Hamlin, Bell, and Larson today. Clearly, people will get laps led, to green flag pit stalls and stuff. But like truly getting control of the race, it's going to be done on pit lane today. And even when you start getting farther back, like you look at Reddick, like yeah, sure, got an open pit stall, but when you're entering the pits, like 8th, 7th best, you're not getting the lead. You're not going to be jumping the top 3 guys. You look at somebody like Byron, yet again, got to be most likely at some point he's going to be racing right beside Truex because Byron's not getting the lead early. So pit lane is not a factor in terms of, being a true like stomping ground of deciding DFS until probably later because Byron's not expected to lead early in the race anyway. By that point, Truex is most likely either right beside him in racing, possibly in front of him. Like this is a major contention here that really hurts Truex for the majority of this race. He's going to have Byron in front of him. We look at Kyle Busch at a disastrous pit selection. Byron, Blaney's always going to be in front of him. Real chance, you know, Blaney has Hemrick probably on the lead lap and stuff, and so that's going to be pretty poor for Hemrick. We look at like Suarez. Like I just see a lot of situations here. Like I see pit road hurting so many guys who are looking for place differential in this race. Um, and again, that just at least explaining my justification for probably my approach and projections and stuff today. Ross, great thing I answered that in the first probably 8-ish minutes of the show. So you got plenty of time. You got, let's see, 3.5 hours till lock. You can listen back on this when it's over, because I'll probably be in the stream like the next like 5 minutes or so. Because I think today, at least for me, I think my approach is pretty straightforward. Whether that works or not, then whatever. But I'm pretty content with my approach that I'm doing. Yeah, like Reddick, like this is concerning. This is absolutely concerning here. Just I'm just concerned with Reddick. Even when you start going through everything, yet again, 2 broken up sessions, but still, like, I'm just not seeing what I want to see out of Reddick based on just based on what I want out of a potential lap leader and stuff. I would prefer to play Gibbs. This is why, like, if I'm looking at Reddick, I want to play Gibbs. Very similar. It's so weird that, like, Byron, speaking to like game theory, Byron's ownership is nearly always below what he should realistically be at. And then you have Gibbs, who has like gone on absolute peaks and valleys this year with ownership. The public is either or the field is either on him or off him completely. And this is a race to where, like, I feel like Gibbs should warrant like a minimum, like, 25% exposure in your stuff, like 30%, like just right then and there. He should probably be like in the GPP, like 24% owned, 22. He should be. It probably comes in low. He probably comes in the teens here. Like, this is a place where I probably want to play Gibbs. Because I think he's better than Reddick. I think he's probably better than Chris Buescher. We're seeing where Joe Gibbs is at. And yet again, like, I hate to use this as like a baseline, but if you like Hamlin, if you like Bell, Truex is kind of in his own thing. We're seeing that that he doesn't have the pace as much, but that's not a huge worry, because we understand that Truex will work his way and he'll probably end up finishing 7th today or something. Like, we should then by default like the cheapest Joe Gibbs guy as at Ty Gibbs at 8,400. Same thing with, like, we'll kind of goof around and look at where Gibbs is at, because I don't remember where Gibbs is. So nothing behind him. You're going to have Zane Smith in front. Zane will most likely be a lap down in this race later when it comes down to it, when things start getting impressive. So a pretty open pit stall. Like, why would we not want to play Ty Gibbs here? Fits in lineups easily. Has not lap lead upside, but has fast lap upside. Good pit crew. Good pit road selection for stage 2 and late race antics. Like, Ty Gibbs seems like a guy that you'd want to play today. I mean, I'd probably limit Bubba, Kyle. I'd probably limit Bubba at like 45%, just where I'm at there. So Keselowski from Sterling, from the high rope. Now, Sterling knows what he's talking about. So typically, anytime Sterling says he's on somebody, I do usually take a gander at him. I think for this point, it's just, I think I have Gibbs projected higher, so I probably will not have any Keselowski exposure. And that's mainly it. Cheaper, 3 positions farther back. Like, I was going to say no fault to Sterling, because that's not a fault. That's just, he's building with Keselowski. I'm building with Gibbs. We're both in the 8K range, and we're the 1v1 between Gibbs and Keselowski. Unless are you using Gibbs at all, or are you just using Keselowski as like your primary guy, Sterling? Because if you're using them together, that'd be interesting, because that's not a build that I would assume would work. but I just assume like Keselowski's fitting in with probably the same builds that I'm using. I'm just using Gibbs in and stuff. Hope Larson, Rex Hamlin today. That's well, I don't think that's gonna happen. I don't know. And I have no clue. I'm not God. I'm not in charge of when he wants to cry on a certain state. I have no idea. Uh, Weather is very much so important. Doesn't matter. Like I have no control of when this is going to rain, when it's not going to rain. If it does, whatever the case may be, like I have no control over that. Good morning, Big Grip. Thank you, Rod. Or Ross. I was going to say Rod. Sieg. Ross Sieg. Thank you. Probably one or the other. Gotta get to both. Okay, yeah. So that and the reason, so like at least for me, like whenever, like if I was watching shows and stuff, like I said, Sterling knows what he's talking about. He's already won contests this year. He does his own show and stuff, and he's in the Discord and he's a TrueDFS member, and he's been following my stuff for years. And so like whenever Sterling says something, like my answer to that is, I don't ask him who his core is. I don't ask him what he thinks. I asked him like, how are you using Keselowski? And then I can deduce before he even gives me the answer. I can deduce it's most likely he's not using other guys in the AK range. I can see because I have two eyes that I have Gibbs at 84. Brad's at 85. Understanding because I've built lines and looked at stuff. He's like, okay, cool. Then I understand that Sterling is very much saying that he is using more Keselowski than he is Gibbs and stuff. The builds would most likely be the same because it's only $100 difference. And he's bringing that up because we're most likely along similar build lines and stuff. And so, like, at least for me, like if I was asking questions or if I was watching a live stream or something like that, is maybe not even asking. Like, I don't know if it's worth asking, like typing in chat of like, hey, Pinnell, who do you have more of, like Keselowski or Gibbs? But I'm like, that's how I would, analyze or take, Sterling bringing Keselowski up and stuff like that. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like rambling too much. But thank you, Sterling, for giving me your answer there. To at least confirm kind of what I figured you were using Keselowski in. But I think that's mainly it. As I said, I'm pretty aggressive on not wanting to chase place differential in the back. I think Nashville's a difficult track to pass at. I think it'll mainly be on pit lane. It'll really all suck if one of these three guys gets a speeding penalty. That might be fatal. That might absolutely kill those lines straight up. So that's probably the one thing I would really hate to see is like ideally, I would love to analyze this race if these three maintain a running position all day in the top four. Then we can really see head to head where these guys fall in line at. This would be a really, really good thing to see in that. If anything, pushes one of these guys out from a data perspective, that's going to be a bit of annoying because I'd like to look at them head to head and post race, seeing how they perform and stuff. What limit Haley at? Like yet again, I like being aggressive. As I said, like I straight up said yesterday, like if I was running 20, I'd have 100% Gibbs and 100% Love. Wouldn't even have cashed yesterday at all. So like I would implore you to not ask me what I would limit people at. Like I think that is a very dangerous question just because I'm very aggressive. But because I would only be using Haley, Hemrick, or Gillen, that most likely means I would be at like 55% Haley today. More than likely, because I'd be building a lot of lines that are in the 5K range, and it would be Haley or Hemrick. By default, that means it'd be like 50-50, but I probably limit Haley at like 55-60 today. And knowing that if we don't, if he doesn't get help early, those lineups are dead as fuck. Like no way that's gonna work. But that's how I would approach it, or that's what I would personally do. But a lot of people get mad at me whenever they ask me what I limit stuff to. So I don't know, I'm being honest. But yeah, I think that's mainly it. I think all of the so Elliott's in the same boat as well. Like when you look at where Bowman and these other Hendrick guys are, like Bowman, which you look at last year, we've clearly improved and Bowman is there, and like Bowman is the guy who, if he's starting, maybe not at Nashville. What's the next? Like Pocono, great example. When we get to Pocono or Michigan, maybe not Indy, maybe I don't know. I'm not. I want to see them practice at Indy before I start weighing that. But like we go to Pocono, right? And Bowman Q's 4, or if we're at Michigan and like Bowman Q's like second, I'm fucking smashing Bowman. Absolutely smashing, because he's showing that like he has speed. He hasn't started up front in these races yet, but he has speed and he's improved very much from where he was at last year. He's very much in play. You know, at $8,000, that's, everything I said to him applies. Same thing with Elliott. Like Elliott is here. Much more consistent. Hasn't ran away with a race. I mean, these are last year stuff, but like this is where Elliott is, and so like if Elliott qualifies well, and this isn't including Texas, because Texas was so crazy, but Elliott won at Texas, because he put himself in position to be there. Like same identical, everything I just gave for Bowman would apply to Elliott, or everything I've said in this video that applies to Bowman applies to Elliott. Maybe much more aggressive, in terms of like I gave the raw points with Bowman working today. I think it's much more than raw points. I think you would need Elliott to you need Elliott to go above what he's been doing, and or two guys between Hamlin, Bell, and Larson either not lead laps or fall out of the top 10 due to pit lane, due to whatever. Like Elliott starts to creep his way in if one of these guys runs away with it, and these guys are just stuck, scoring 40, possibly scoring like mid 50 laps or mid 50 points with some fast laps throughout this race. That's when Elliott starts going through. And so if you're like running a 1 lap leader build, that's where I would start running Elliott, or start having exposure to him and stuff like that. But that's I think that's mainly it. We got 102 you guys here. Thank you for joining me. We were live for 46 minutes. I think that's mainly it. I think I'll let you guys go and enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I forgot what day it was. I'll let you guys enjoy the rest of your Sunday. And thanks for tuning in. Thank you for always supporting me. And if you want to support me even further, you can join. Bad segue. You know what? Like, how it is. If you want my stuff, you want to support me, you can join the website. If not, I fully understand. Are you looking to restart data as well? I've heard from other creators this track is hard to pass. I need to be aggressive on restarts to make it passes. Yes and no. I default to this more. I look at that stuff. Same thing with like the pit data as well. Like I look at that. But when you're looking at restart data specifically, and this could be a rant on looking at that data, you have to know what context you're looking it at in, and what part of races you're looking at, because that can be dirtied very much by people staying out on old tires. Like for example, we'll use the restart last week at Iowa, where Stenhouse stayed out on old tires, right? So like by default, everybody behind him is going to have one position gained, like right off the bat, right? And then it's dictated by what line they start in. We're using Stenhouse for example. I haven't looked into this because it's Iowa. I haven't bothered looking into this exact issue or example, but this is how I would look at it. So one, I'd be like, okay, I need to be aware that the data is going to lean to people gaining positions due to Stenhouse staying out. It's also going to be determined by what lane Stenhouse was in. So anybody behind him who accidentally gets trapped behind him, in turn 1 or turn 2, has a high likelihood of losing more positions than other people who weren't in the same line as him. And so if you're looking at the data points, you might, like, just as an example for this case, you might see people who gain positions on that restart, who lost positions on that restart. But, understanding why the data is going to show that for certain people is important. Okay. So when you look at restart data, I personally don't just throw it in there and use it as like average position gained on restarts from people, because I think that's not deceiving, but I think it's diluted isn't the right word, because it's not diluted. Oh my God, I forgot the word. I'm gonna use the term diluted because I can't think of anything else. Because there's it not even what is the word? Like amped up, not amped up, but like increased. Like the data you're putting in there has things that you need to be aware of. And if you're not aware of those things and you just see, oh, average position gain on restart is like, 2.5 positions by driver A, you don't understand the context of why that might be the case. And so very time consuming, but the best way to look at restart data is to look at every restart. Okay. Like analytically, not data point, but like watch the restart, be aware of what happened, and then apply that context to the data on the restart so you understand where people are at, and then separate that data between all restarts. And um, then you can see who's actually gaining more positions, who, especially like you, ideally, you just want to look at positions or restarts to where all guys are on four tires, all guys are up front the way they should be. Um, you know, and then you have to like parallel it with like pit data as well. What if, you know, a good driver had a bad pit stop, okay, and they'd lost, 4 positions on pit road, okay? In a perfect world, like they would have maintained or exited pit lane either 1 position higher or 1 position lower than where they came in, or they maintained their position. And then if you looked at that restart, they might not gain as many positions because they're already at where they are, or they're already at where they should be. Okay. But like that doesn't happen. He loses position on pit lane. And so he starts, in ninth where he probably should have started in sixth or something. So if he gains 3 positions on that restart, that adds to his average of positions gained. But really, was it a position gained? He just got back what he lost on pit lane. Was that because he's good at restarts, or just because he had a faster car than where those guys are at? And so when you're looking at restart data up top, you got to worry about that. Restart data in the back of the field is going to be drastically different because you can have guys gain 6 positions or lose 6 positions and stuff. So, like, I personally don't like restart data as a data point that I weigh a lot on because of all these, caveats and asterisks of what I'm looking at. I'm not saying you can't use it, but acknowledge that all that is in play on restart data versus just being like the one thing that I would really be worried about is if somebody was just like, "Oh, so and so is good on restarts. He's doing this." Like, if they just said that blindly and didn't add anything else, like I would personally, that is not how I would use it. That was skewed. Skewed is the word. Thank you, Jason. I could not think of the freaking word. Um, but that is all the things I put into restart data and why I think it's a very touchy data point to use, and why I just default to where people are running for the most part. Um, Whenever I'm looking at stuff. Very long-winded way to end the video. But hopefully that explains restart data and stuff. Maybe it makes you think. Maybe you didn't think about all that stuff before. Maybe you did, and I just wasted your time. But either way, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Best of luck today, guys, and I will see you in the next video for, oh my God, the Chicago Street Course. Oh boy. See you guys next week.